might be that we hate Islam because we care for Muslims and we think Muslims are the main victims of Islam. And we might be completely wrong about that. We're being so ridiculous about even thinking that. But even if we're wrong about that, can you at least appreciate that our hatred for Islam does not come from our hatred for Muslims? And that example usually works for me. So feel free to use it if you ever want to make that point.
So do you feel that maybe there's not as many atheist communicators, there's more talking about Christianity or, you know, Mormonism or Jehovah's Witnesses than there are talking about atheism? Well, because one of the things that I see is you tend to speak about the religion that you yourself deconverted from because that's what you know the most about. So you'd almost have to do a lot of research in order to be able to provide an effective counter.
No. Okay, I'm an ex-Muslim, but it's very obvious to me that Judaism is absolutely ridiculous and barbaric and backward.
Right? I think they're all crazy too. But in order to provide an effective counter, you have to do more than just think, I disagree with this. If somebody's sophisticated enough to be a counter apologist, or an apologist, I should say, and you're a counter apologist, if you want to have an effective counter argument, you need to make sure that it's meticulous.
I don't think so.
Why not?
No, I don't think so. Because imagine if somebody came and told you that they think Harry Potter is real. It's based on real history. Okay,
is it not?
And you want to tell them that okay, that's ridiculous.
Mine.
And somebody and you wanted to tell them that's ridiculous, but then they tell you, well, do you know what Harry's wand was made of? Do you know all the detail between Voldemort's childhood? Do you know all the details about this? Do you know the statue that was at this house, at this school? Did you know the history behind why that was built in this and Hogwarts and why it was at this specific location? And you say, no, I don't know any of that. And then they tell you, well, if you don't know the details about, so how could you be so arrogant to tell me that Harry Potter is not real if you don't know the details of all this, of everything in the universe? You don't, I mean, it's pretty, I think that if they try to take you down that rabbit hole, then you already lost the main point.
But here's the thing though, Armin, what if you're trying to convince them to not believe Harry Potter is real? If you're trying to convince them and they already believe it, you need to be able to counter the things they bring up. And if you don't know anything about what they brought up, and they really believe it's true. Is it? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying you don't need to be an Islamic scholar to know that if you can't show me an evidence for a prophet going on a horse wing and going to heaven, like where is the evidence? I mean, where's the evidence for that? That's all you need to ask, honestly. It's very easy. I mean, the only reason why... What if they say it's
allegory?
Well, wait, though. He actually cleaved the moon in half, right? That's the story.
Yeah,
that's in the Quran, too. So where's the... I mean, why did nobody notice that all around the world? I mean, okay, but I mean, I try to study Islam and Christianity and Judaism and sometime hopefully Hinduism as well, because I find it interesting. Okay, because I think even though they're not true, it tells you a lot about the human mind and what we need as humans. Why did we make up these stories? To me, it's very interesting, right? But when it comes to pointing out that these are nonsense, you don't need any of that. I just study it because it's just fascinating. And I think you could get... the reason why you study these religions is because you could get other useful information out of it. Not because you need it to counter... religious, the trick, they take you into that rabbit hole as a trick. You shouldn't fall for that. You should always step one. When they try to take you down to all the complexity. No, okay. So they try
to hold the belief,
right?
And I'm trying to say you shouldn't hold that belief.
Right.
How do I effectively counter it without knowing the nuances of the belief?
okay, so the trick is that they try to point to all the complexity of their faith, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. They show you libraries of scholars, of history, of people that analyze the faith in such great detail. I mean, if you want to go through that, you need like 100 lifetimes to be able to analyze all that, right?
Yeah,
you won't be able
yeah.
to. They try to point to that to impress you, okay? To impress you, to be like, this can't be bullshit if we have this much written on it, if we have this much analysis on it, right? Greater minds than you have been writing about this for hundreds of years. Who are you to come tell me this is all bullshit, right? But then the point, you have to point to them that if that's their standard, then Islam is not true because Christianity has more books than you do, right? If Christians want to point to their scholarly work, well, based on that argument, Christianity is not true because Jews have been writing about their religion for longer. Zoroastrians have their many books before the Muslims burned all of them. Right? Hinduism, what do you have to say about Hinduism? They have way longer history than all of you, and they have way more books than all of you. Like, is that really your standard? Because you're going to lose that argument. I'm always just saying, instead of diving, like playing their game, step back and see what they're saying. And it's usually something very simple and very stupid.
So you think
it doesn't take a genius to realize this is all baseless.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm an atheist, so I'm certainly not a genius. So I said I'm an atheist and I'm certainly not a genius. So I think I would agree with you on that part. But I'm also interested in what compels people to believe something and what compels people to change their mind. That's something that's always fascinated me. And if they believe
that's a very good question. That's a very good question. And if you notice, the people that come up with excuses for religion, they are the few that know all these details, right? And they try to tell you that all of these details is why the religion is true. But if you're asking that question, why people believe these things, most of them don't know any of this. Most Muslims don't know much about Islam. Most Christians don't know much about Christianity. Most believing Jews don't know much about Judaism. So the question that you're asking, what makes people believe these things, does not lead, this answer to that doesn't lead you to what the people that are trying to make excuses for the religion, it doesn't go to all those books and all the history and all the, scholarly work. That's not the answer, because most of them don't know that. That's a good question to ask, Shannon. And when you answer that question, you realize that you're wasting your time if you're studying these religions for being able to, counter them. I mean, I don't think it's a waste of time completely, because I'm telling you, you could get a lot of other points out of studying these religions other than trying to counter them. You don't need to study them to counter them. I studied them for a different reason. But once you actually study the average believer, then you notice that studying these religions in detail is not what you need to counter them. There's other reasons why people believe in these things.
So most of it is more epistemological. That's fair, and community-based, and they're interwoven into something that's part of their intrinsic identity. So when you're approaching somebody, do you take more of an epistemological approach of getting them to analyze why they believe what they do, external of the textual component? Do you sort of get them to do some introspection regarding how they come to believe?
Depends on the person. Depends on the person.
So you do it. That's fair. That's actually, I respect that, because that's very true.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
You first have to get to know the person you're talking to.
Yeah, which is difficult. Well, on these types of platforms, it's difficult. So looking for a strategy, because right now I'm not talking to somebody except for you, but there's people listening to us. So it's very important to try to look at a way that you can have a strategy where you can affect that kind of dissonance in somebody's mind. You can elicit that sort of curiosity that makes them maybe delve deeper or do that introspection. And it's not the same for everybody, which is why I think multiple approaches are necessary, because everybody's going to be compelled by something different. But I find it really intriguing and valuable to have these sorts of interactions with people who are kind of, in the trenches like I am, having these conversations about what they found effective and why. So,
well, okay.
That's kind
so
of why
again, this is why there's so many of us, right? This is why you have genetically modified skeptic, you have the cosmic skeptic, you have the NonSequitur show, you have Nightmare Fuel, you have so many different shows, and because different people respond to different type of content, right? So this is why you produce what you see is resonating with your community, and you just worry about the other kind of people that don't for another channel to deal with the people that you're not resonating with. But one thing I can tell you,
are important, I think.
Yeah, exactly. This and another thing that I want to point to is that we one thing that I think we are missing a lot of content to is a lot of us, not all of us, okay, a lot of us have come to the conclusion that religion is nonsense because there was no evidence to believe in it, right? The problem is that most people in the world don't think like that, right? Okay, this is something I mentioned in Calgary, and it's going to come off like an insult, but it's not an insult, and I will clarify after I mention, okay? Again, this is not an insult, I will clarify, okay? Most people are stupid, okay? Intelligence is not very common, right? And that sounds like an insult, but I don't think this is an insult, and I want to change the way people look at stupid people, right? I'm not talking about lack of information. I'm talking about the capacity to think logically, okay? Because, and I'm on purpose using the word stupid because that's the word people use as an insult, okay? Right. But if you think about it, if somebody can't use their legs properly, okay, we sympathize with them and we try to help them. If somebody can't walk, if somebody can't use their eyes and they're blind, we sympathize with them and we try to help them. But if somebody can't use their brain properly, we don't seem to sympathize with them. In fact, we see them as inferior, and we shame them, and we see them as unworthy of even talking to. They're just stupid. Which is strange to me because I would think that one of the most important, things we need to survive in this world is to be able to think logically. And the people that are not able to think logically, to me, seem that they deserve more sympathy than, that's a handicap, right? That's a handicap that deserves our sympathy. And these people that need to be taken care of, to be cared for. They deserve our help rather than our disdain or shame, right? So I don't. It seems to me like within intellectual circles, most of the content that is produced is mostly for other intellectual people, and we just think that we need to just make this world, the people always comment, and you see in Facebook comment sections or other places, oh, why can't people just smarten up? Why are these people have to be this stupid? Why can't people just be smarter? Well, I mean, if you're waiting for people to be smarter, then you're going to be waiting forever, right? It's not going to happen. Right? We can't just make this. We're in this together. We can't just make this planet just work for smart people. We have to somehow make it work for everybody, including the people that can't even appreciate that who they need to thank for the world becoming better. Even those people deserve to be happy. Okay, so even though intelligence is not very common. There's another thing that is a force for good on average. Again, all of this is flawed. That we can appeal to that usually produces more positive results than negative, right? And the other thing that we could appeal to that is not people's intelligence, that is way more common, is sympathy. Because even though intelligence is not very common, I think sympathy is very common, right? And I give you an example by what I mean. And again, this goes against myself, because I wrote a book called Why